Hi, everyone, and welcome to our lecture on budgeting. So, what is budgeting? Budgeting is simply the act of planning your expenses. You take how much money you have coming in and you plan for where you can allocate those funds, whether that be for rent, a mortgage, utilities, groceries, or other things of that nature. Simply stated, a budget accounts for all of your expenses against your total income. And it's important that expenses never exceed your total income. If you have more money going out than you have coming in, that's a problem. It can lead to late payments, which can affect your credit, late fees that can be tacked onto these late payments, overdraft fees from banks when more money is taken out than what is currently in your account to begin with. And it can lead to debt if unexpected charges come up. And we'll talk about these consequences later on in the semester. So, why are budgets helpful? Beyond preventing overspending and debt, budgets help us to sort out priorities. They can help us identify something we need as opposed to something we just want. It can also help us to identify the trajectory of our financial habits. What happens if we keep spending money the way we have been? Will we have enough for our future goals, such as having a car or a house? If not, this can help us to identify the amount needed to set aside to reach this goal. It can help us to establish an emergency fund in case something unexpected happens, such as having a car breakdown or having to go to the hospital. It can help us to identify bad spending habits and make plans to change them. And when we are in control of our finances, we tend to have less anxiety about money, which can weigh on us. As you can imagine, it can be hard to focus on a class or enjoy a new car if you don't know how you're going to pay for it. With that, let's talk about how to budget. The first thing we need to do is monitor our monthly income. It's hard to know where to allocate our money if we don't know how much we have. Add up all of your sources of income and see how much you have at the end of the month. Currently, I'm only working one job, but as an undergraduate, I had multiple positions on top of babysitting, and I didn't do a very good job of tracking how much money I was actually making. Also, consider if there are other ways to bring in money, including side hustles. Not everyone will have the time or the ability to take on more, but it is something to consider. From here, employ the 40-30-30 rule. This was originally called the 50-30-20 rule, but has been changed over time, adjusting for a more expensive cost of living. Essentially, 40% of your income should go to regular living expenses, such as rent, groceries, and bills. 30% goes towards paying off debt, such as loans and credit card payments. And then 30% goes towards monthly savings for emergencies, medical expenses, and retirement. However, that is 100% of your income. And as mentioned in Lecture 1, you deserve to have fun and do things you enjoy. The question becomes, well, where do entertainment expenses come from? And with that, there's not really a good answer. Some people might take it from the regular expenses and try to save on groceries when something fun is coming up, like a concert. Other people might make slightly lower payments on debts or take from their monthly savings. This is something that will differ from person to person. From here, categorize your expenses. Create categories for yourself, such as rent, groceries, and entertainment. The expense tracker on the slide is just one I found online, but there are others out there, or you can just keep track in a notebook or a spreadsheet. You'll notice that this expense tracker has categories such as recreation and home and auto. I chose this image because it has categories of things that you might not think of, and it shows that categories can be tailored to you and what makes sense for your life. So once you have categories that make sense to you, just track your spending. Again, it's hard to know what behavior to change if we don't know what that behavior is. Keep a detailed record of how much you have spent and on what items. Then, at the end of the month, convert your expenses into a spreadsheet, So you have a master document to go back to and see if you've made progress on this goal later on. Once you've tracked your spending, it's time to make changes. Maybe you've noticed that instead of 40% of your income going towards living expenses, it's 50%. And by tracking your spending, you see that you are spending a lot of money on going out to eat every single night. At that point, it might be time to start buying groceries and cooking at home. But it's important to be reasonable here. This doesn't mean that you never go out to eat again, but maybe it means you cook at home most nights and limit going out to 1 to 2 nights per week. And then seeing how much money that saves you can help to reinforce that change. You can also think of savings as being its own expense. If you think of savings as its own category in your budgeting sheet and are paying yourself first by putting money into that account each time you get paid, you can start to build up your savings, which can go towards future goals or an emergency fund. And we'll talk more about emergency funds in future lectures. When it comes to budgeting and saving, it's helpful to have a dedicated savings account separate from your checking and spending accounts. When these funds are together, it can be really easy to accidentally dip into your savings, and you might not even be aware of it until later on. It's also hard to know exactly how much you have in terms of savings when these funds are together. If you put this money aside and only see the amount of money you are allowing yourself to spend, you are more likely to stick to your budget. From here, review your finances monthly. Budgeting is an ongoing process. You can't just do it once and then be done with it forever. Income and expenses can change without you really taking notice of it unless you're looking at it. And if you are tracking your finances monthly, this gives you something to compare your current financial situation to. You can see if you're staying within budget and if you're doing better or maybe worse compared to previous months. And if you're someone who prefers visuals like I do, you can make a graph in your spreadsheet to easily see these changes over time, as opposed to having to look at all the data in the spreadsheet each time. As you are budgeting, consider assets that may not have made it into your budgeting sheet. There can be expenses associated with homes, cars, technology, and things of that nature. I consider the amount for oil changes every few months and new wiper blades each year for my car. Sometimes those inconsistent expenses are forgotten about within budgets. And lastly, develop long-term SMART goals. There's a video posted to Canvas regarding SMART goals for you to watch if you have not already done so. The idea here being that you should know what you are budgeting for and exactly how you can put that into action to achieve whatever financial goal you have. And that is all I have for you. Please let me know if you have any questions.